Hey there, this is Mr. Bird. I'd like to show you a couple tips and tricks in regards to copy and paste, but do that in the context of a challenging electricity problem. And so, whether you have the TI-Nspire CAS or the numeric TI-Nspire, you can solve a system of linear equations. That's what we have. We just have some linear equations. How many equations do we have? Well, we've got three equations, and they default to give me an XYZ. Well, I'd like to use my own. How about I1, I2, and I3 for these three currents, for the three current paths? All right, so what are these three equations? Well, the junction rule of Kirchhoff's junction rule tells us that whatever's coming into the junction, whatever current comes in, is equal to the current that comes out. Looks like I've got an I1 coming out, and that's equal to the I2 plus I3 that comes in. And then the loop rule around loop 1, let's start up here with this 12 volts. And so as we go around, V equals IR, voltage adds, IR drops, and another IR drops. Voltage gets added, IR drop, IR drop. And so this is a nice one to use a system of equations and solve. So we're going to start off with 12 volts minus the I1 times that internal resistance of 1 minus the I1 times the 8 ohm resistor plus the 12 volts that gets added in that little path over down there, minus I2 times 1 minus I2 times 10 minus I1 times 12. We're back in that other path. That all adds up to be equal to 0, again from that loop rule. And then what's the third equation? Well, let's start here at the 9 volt and go around in a similar fashion, except for, wait a second, if we're going around this way, we're going through the wrong way. Instead of subtracting the voltage drop, oddly enough, we're going to add the voltage drop. Similarly, instead of adding the voltage from this source, from this battery, we're going to subtract it. Yep, it's odd, but it works out great. So let's go with 9 and then I3 times 1. I know I don't have to say times 1. Minus I3 times 15 plus the I2 times 10 plus I2 times 1 minus that 12 volts I was telling you about, and then one more plus the I3 times 15 ohms. All that's up to be equal to 0, and there you have it. And there's the three solutions. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So if you had a numeric, you might get these. Now, copy paste. Part of what you saw I did just there, I pressed Ctrl Enter and I got decimal approximations. Why? Well, look, there's an approximately equals right there above that. Ctrl Enter is a great tip. Usually I use solve, and let me show you this copy paste. If you go up, it's all selected. Now you can just select a certain portion of it by holding down Shift and selecting it, and you can see it gets that nice light blue. Or here's a darker blue. So if you did Shift and arrow, then you could select some of it. If you just press Enter, that copies and pastes it. So I have now successfully copied and pasted it. Let's add another page. This doesn't work if you're using the scratch pad. You need to be in a document. If you add another page, like a notes page, and I'm going to paste what we had done before, it wraps. And this time, since I'm using CAS, I'm just going to use solve instead of the lin solve. And I press Enter, and then again, it does some nice wrapping. And then I'll press Control. If you go back up in here and you press Control Enter, it will give you that decimal approximation for that. And so there's some tips about copy paste.